Looks like we're live on Facebook there, mate, well, you're obviously in Queenstown again.
Here we go. Yeah, look, with this whole quarantine thing, it seems like a pretty cool place to hang around. And look, people need the money pumped into the economy. So what a better place to be than, these are the privileges of running a business. It is in fact a fancy dancy Zoom background. I trawled the internet and found this little picture here, and a lot of people do like it. And saying that you've got a remote Queenstown office is pretty cool.
Nice. You've definitely tricked a few people along the last few weeks. But today we're not doing tricks. We're talking tips and tricks actually as well in Xero. So we're going to go through some things that we think can help people save a lot of time and make Xero a lot easier, and hopefully some things that people didn't even know exists. So Phil is going to demonstrate live some of these in action with the demo company, which is probably tip number one, is that there is a demo company if you do want to go in and practice some things in a Xero ledger without worrying about cooking your own book, so to speak.
Absolutely. Now I have got, can you see my screen?
You can.
There we go. Hey presto. There is the demo company. Boompa. We'll come back to the dashboard because I was in here a little bit earlier, punters. If you're in, I can't do it at the moment because that would bring down who our clients are, and we can't really do that. But if anyone wants to get the demo company, you click your drop down box here and it'll have your organizations, and normally somewhere on that list it'll have the demo company. You click on that and then you can play around in here, and this is a really good place to try things if you've never done anything before in Xero and you just want to go, gee, what's this going to look like? Am I going to break something?
Nice, which is often how we learn, isn't it? By breaking stuff and then learning from our mistakes.
Yeah, and then when all else fails, just Google the answer, right?
Definitely, including all accounting questions.
Yeah, we're obviously faster at doing the whole Googling because we normally have the answer within 24 hours, but I hear some accountants take at least a week to get back.
Well, that's
so maybe they're still on dial-up.
But we might be too. Speaking of asking questions, I think we'll just point out there to the top right of your screen is how people can actually get help from Xero directly, and the in-depth knowledge base that already exists, right?
Absolutely. That's probably a good place to start, is this question mark.
The question mark.
We'll click that. What do you need help with? What do you need help with, Luke?
Bad debts. People aren't paying me because of COVID.
Oof, yeah, that's could be popular. So we'll go bad debt. Enter. Record a bad debt in Xero. That sounds like something you might want to have a try on. Click that. And the great thing about the Xero help function, if you've never used this before, is it is probably one of the most in-depth and thorough help guides that I've seen, and it is step by step. It is even idiot-proof / fill-proof. So real step-by-step stuff here on what to do, and that's the same process with the entire help function in Xero. Another classic example that we've seen before that springs to mind is if somebody pays you in advance, a prepayment.
Nice. That's very common.
Record a prepayment. That's really, really common. Click that.
Tells you what to do. I think it's
hey presto.
Important for people to get familiar with that, because I think people stall and get stuck in Xero and then don't carry on finishing what they were doing and think, I might ask my accountant, or I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not going to carry on. So you don't need to do that. Someone's already asked the question and Xero's already answered it in a very, very thorough format.
Yep. Yeah, it is. It's all there, and that help thing, question mark, and type in what you think it is. And if you still get stuck, failing that, there's this one here, contact Xero support. And this will take you to their website, and there's a whole heap of different things there that you can pick from. You can ask a question, add a little bit more detail. make sure that you pick your organization that you are asking the question about, so that they can have access. More often than not, invite them in so that they can have a poke around, and then send it. And in my experience, when Xero have had to look at stuff like that in the past, they're very prompt.
Yeah. And a little trick is often in the subject, if you put urgent, you might get seen a little bit faster. And but be very careful with that, and be very genuine, and also thank them very nicely, because you're dealing with real people.
Yeah.
Hundreds of queries, and we've actually spoken to them one evening to build some morale around some of those people, and they do get hurt by the keyboard warriors, so to speak, the keyboard cowards, maybe.
No, a very good bunch of people, and very knowledgeable, and do a very good job. So they make a difference. What else do you want to show, Luke?
Well, let's go one for one. Is there anything that you've one of your favorites that you want to bring up?
Or one for one? Yep. Let's do reconciling bank items. A trap for young players is when you see this OK pop up, just to click it, and click it all the way down. It's got OK there, but my piece of advice would be check it before going OK. We had a client at another accounting firm many years ago who had a withdrawal, and the original withdrawal was for telephone expenses, and GST was claimed on it. And then in the following months, because the detail on the bank statement side of the transaction, this is the bank statement up here, it says on up here somewhere, you'll review your bank statement lines. These are your bank statement lines with your this is the Xero side. Xero had picked up that because it was matched text in the previous thing, that it should be always telephone expenses, because suggest previous entries down here was ticked. Well, what had happened was it was drawings, and drawings are not an expense, and they certainly don't have GST. And when it comes, there was a pretty smart accountant that was looking at it and worked out that they had claimed GST on a whole heap of stuff that had been miscoded to telephone expenses when it should have been drawings, or because they just looked at it and clicked OK without checking it. So if you do have this suggest previous entries ticked, which I think it is by default, just because it says OK, it doesn't mean it's OK. Check it, then go OK.
Nice, mate. Very good. While you're there, click on that add details on any one of those for me. Let's go that smart agency add details. I just want to show one of my favorites is that there's actually a calculator built in to these cells down here. So if Phil wants to split that 4,500 out and make it divide it by 4, for instance, to take 25% of it to one code, he can divide that by 4 and it will calculate it for you. So it's very, very handy for people that need to put things to different codes, or they need to work out a private portion. So everything that you'd normally do in your Excel or Google Sheets, I think it's the same sort of formatting. So the minus, the plus, and the divide is the slash, and the that's an asterisk, isn't it? That's the multiplier.
Yeah, so multiplier. I'm no good at maths, and I don't know what $123.45 times 6 is. But if there's that rolling through your thing, there you go. It's automatically worked it out for you.
Beautiful. So don't overlook the old inbuilt calculator. It can save you a lot of time.
And while we're here, on the entire reconciling function, whether you're doing it in here, always check your GST, whether it's GST on expenses, GST. That's just when it comes up, there it is there. No GST, that's on bank fees, so that's right. But there's some expenses, for example, freight, particularly if it's stuff that's been imported, GST can get a bit funky there. So just be mindful of that.
Nice. For international travel, perhaps, or something that doesn't have GST here in New Zealand. Sweet. What about invoice reminders? I know is one of your favorites, mate, that a lot of people don't know about. Talk to clients about.
Invoice reminders. How do we get to invoice reminders?
I think it's business. Well, just some background for those people watching. One of Xero's missions is actually to speed up the rate at which Kiwi businesses and small business and business probably internationally receive payment. New Zealand's got a bit of a bad culture of being slow to pay people and going beyond the due date. So a lot of the tools and features in Xero are actually built around helping collect money faster. So invoice reminders is a classic example where these push automated reminders to your customers that, hey, you haven't paid us on time, and you can change the messaging that goes to them. And I think it'll send them up to 3 reminders, won't it, Phil? And I think
it can send more, and I've just found it. So by going from your drop down menu here to settings, and then invoice settings, then invoice reminders, and in the demo company, it's incidentally switched off. So let's turn it on.
Wow.
And we will go, it's 7 days overdue. So we can actually change it here and go
1 day.
Due in. So if it's due within 3 days, it's due soon. So these ones here that are enclosed by brackets, fields that can pre-populate data from within Xero. So they're your placeholders. And there's a whole heap of placeholders here that you can select. And you can change the language that's in here. Thanks for working us. This is a gentle reminder that your bill is due on. That's really nice. That suits us. So we'll save that. So when it's in 3 days, just as a prompt, and then edit this one. Overdue by 3 days. So it is due. Thanks for working us. You was due on. If you've already paid it, blah, blah, blah. Save. And then as we get to 7 days that, and then when you get to by the time we get in 14 days and we sent them that many emails, I'd be changing the language in here a little bit and maybe making it a little bit more sterner.
Yeah.
My internet connection is unstable. That's popped up, but we'll soldier on. Include quick link to online invoice and detail summary. Include a link to the invoice PDF. I would unselect that. So this is a little hack in Xero is I normally wouldn't attach the PDF to the invoice because it then forces your customers to click the link. And when you click the link of the invoice in Xero, and we'll just show you here, it's got here sent all the way down. When somebody clicks on the link and opens up the invoice in their web browser, it'll change that to viewed. So you can see of all the people that you've sent invoices to, who's actually viewed them. So when you're doing your data collection and going through your accounts receivable list, that old chestnut of going, oh, I've never received that invoice, or I've never seen that invoice before, they can't pull the wool over your eyes on that one because you've got the detail here all in front of you. And if you are sending invoice reminders, it does come up and say, I'll go to the ones that are awaiting payment actually. It will come up and say how many reminders are sent, and it'll have it in there. So you can easily track, well, and once the third and last one's been sent, it'll say all. And then when you're scanning through it, you can go, oh, gee, that's way overdue. All the reminders have been sent. I'll jump on the phone and have a chat with them.
That is brilliant. So you can catch them out almost if they might be, like you say, trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
Yeah, a little thing there. Don't send reminders for amounts owing on an invoice under, and you can customize that there. So if you're not worried about $10, $100 or whatever it is, it will ignore this. And then obviously don't forget to save it. For that to work, the key thing is that you must be emailing your invoices to your customers and have a valid email address for them set up in Xero. So to check that, City Limousines, we can open that invoice up. It'll bring it to there. We can click there to go to their contact card. There are other ways to get there. We could have just gone contacts all or customers. And if we selected customers, you can scroll through, or in search, city, and there they are. So we're in the same place, just a different way of getting there. And then we've got invoice reminders are turned on for this customer. So the thing with invoice reminders is you can set it up as a system-wide thing, but then turn it off and on for certain customers. And you can also do it at an invoice level. So if you send out an invoice to somebody, so if we come back to our reminder list that we were in before, we can change the invoice here and go, don't send a reminder. Turn invoice reminders off.
Nice.
And I've used that before because I know we've sent an invoice and it's like, nah, this is a little bit different, so we won't send them reminders, and you turn that off, and that's quite nice to do. But if you want to change any of the details here, you click edit, and see here, no email addresses in there, so we can't be emailing them, obviously, the invoice, or you can use that. But we could type in maybe Craig Hudson at Xero.com and he might get the reminders.
Yeah, nice. Well, you're like maybe Jamie Oliver, because you're like the Jamie Oliver accounting mate with these pre-prepared bloody situations. Talk to me about the app marketplace. What's the app marketplace?
Well, that's a jolly good question, Luke. You're just a fountain of knowledge of all things Xero. Let's come back. So firstly, what is the app marketplace? It's a part of Xero where you can go and look at other apps. So there's other software developers out there. There's more nerds than the ones that are just employed by Xero. And I think to be a nerd these days is a really cool term, because this software is some really, really smart stuff, and it blows me away. And it's software that bolts onto Xero. So in other words, it integrates with your accounting stuff to do other things. So it really expands the capability of what your accounting software can do. So the real common one would be inventory. The inventory module in Xero is reasonably basic, and is good for tracking small amounts of inventory or time at a simple level. But beyond that, if you need to start and track multiple levels, multiple items of stock, and they're held in different warehouses, and you're an importer or an exporter or something like that, then you're going to want to be looking at some of these providers here. And you know, we've had clients look at SimPro, Unleashed. We've got clients that are using Deer. We looked at TradeGecko before. There's a whole heap there, and there are businesses out there that are specialists as app integration advisors, and they know some of these apps incredibly well, and what will work probably better for your business than you having to go through and work it all out. But you have to obviously pay for that as a service. But you can see here, you can do it by function, or you can do it by industry. So, you know, if I'm in the automotive industry, you know, what are some things that I'm going to want to do? Go cardless, absolutely, because I want to get paid. And there's some stuff here to be able to track, you know, if I'm a panel beater, presumably. Let's just sort of, and most of the stuff here has got CRM bits and pieces built into it. So you're backing in customer relationship management stuff.
Magic. I like that. That's probably a good one for people to have a look at, just by industry, so that they can have a think about what other people might be using, or what may be out there.
Yeah, heaps here. Health. I mean, you'll be running your own clinic, so I suspect
clinics.
Yeah, that there'll be a bit of software in here to help you run a more efficient clinic.
Yeah, Timely is a very popular bolt-on for a lot of people in the beauty industry and whatnot, and booking times and showing what times are available, and automating a lot of the booking process, which is probably only really recent technology over the last couple of years, but has put a lot of time back into businesses' days and made them a lot, and then therefore increase their margin, right? Because they're not having to pay an admin person to do it. And so all those types of businesses have actually become more profitable. a little bit of accounting 101 whilst you hear those listening.
Yep, and I think a general rule of thumb is if you're in business, chances are that a problem that you have encountered or a manual process that you are doing, somebody's been down that road before and has probably automated it. And Google is an absolute fountain of knowledge. You've just got to be prepared to invest the time and do a bit of groundwork on trying to see what's out there, and you can end up going down a few rabbit holes, but it's absolutely endless. One of the ones on automation at a pretty basic level is Zapier, right? Where it can automate tasks, and that's mind-blowing how that integrates between different cloud software applications and can automate stuff that would normally be done manually. Ultimately, if you can make stuff automated and you have confidence that that process works, you're freeing up somebody's time to be able to add value in a different way and hopefully add to your bottom line and grow your business.
Beautiful. Could you just click on that franchises tab there? I just want to see if there's what comes under the franchises. There might be a few accounting firms that need to use this, some of the bigger ones. Oh yeah, they might be using a few of these. Good to see. What about
Profit Seed, perhaps?
T-sheets, time tracking. Phil and I are actually just taking the mickey out of some of the bigger accounting firms to be fair, because we don't keep timesheets, but it's very commonplace in our industry. So sort of breaking the mold as we do. Well, let's get back into Xero, mate. I want to show people that every Xero ledger has an email address that they can use that a lot of people miss, which is these days up to your right, isn't it? Or is it?
It's in files, isn't it?
Go straight to files. Yeah. Yep. That's probably
so. That one, I think that's the. Otherwise, you can do it. You add a file this way.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's got the email address there. I think to get the email address, files, and there it is there.
There we go, which you can also rename that. But yeah, a lot of clients will save their email address, and if they get PDF or documents that they know are going to be important at the end of the financial year or for the accountant, then they'll just forward those emails directly to that email address.
Yeah, I'm a next level nerd, and I downloaded it as a V card and saved it as a contact on the old phone. So when I'm somewhere and I need to scan a receipt, because obviously we're accountants and we keep all of our receipts.
All of them.
But we don't keep the paper copy. We'll keep the electronic copy. So we'll take the photo and email it to that email address, but it's saved as a contact in the phone. And I tell you, that's a great little wee hack.
Yeah, and of course, Xero comes with HubDoc these days, doesn't it, Phil? You just have to turn it on for those higher premium subscriptions, which is something similar where it will store the information and also suck some of the information off of the data and bang it into to be reconciled, perhaps. Yeah,
that's the one. A lot of bigger businesses are now partnering with Xero via HubDoc, and the likes of Spark and Placemakers and some of the lease companies and Z, for example, for your fuel. Rather than you getting the paper invoice, it gets electronically sucked up to HubDoc, and that becomes your little document hub, and that from there will automatically analyze it and push it into Xero as a draft bill down here. And then when you go to look at your bill, you click on it there. These are your bills. So this is where you owe money. Up here, even it says here, connect to HubDoc to stop chasing bills. You can click on your little document icon there, and it'll take you to the electronic copy of the invoice. So no more keeping paper in files.
Beautiful. Well, that is very handy for people. I think a lot of people don't know about that. And something else that they may not know about would be cache coding, which we'll touch on because it can be time consuming, but it's very rarely used, isn't it? But it can be very good for somebody that's been a little bit naughty and hasn't been keeping up to date with their reconciling.
Yeah, so to get to cache coding, you click on the reconcile button that I just clicked on before, and this little tab up here. This is an absolute godsend if you are new to Xero and you've got a whole heap of transactions to reconcile. And we've had this before with clients where you import bank statements and there can be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of individual transactions. This allows you via cache coding to code transactions in bulk by grouping and sorting and filtering based on common things. So one thing you can do is click on these blue links here and it'll group them. So these are all like hyperlinks to be able to sort things, and we can go, that's already coded there, so it's great. So we know that that's parking, so we can click that, come down here, hold shift, and then click that, and it selects them all. Come over here, parking, that'll go to travel, wouldn't it, Luke?
Definitely.
And GST, because that looks like it's something in New Zealand. If we leave those ticked and click save and reconciled, it'll just do those ones. If we do uncheck all, it'll change to save and reconcile all, and it'll get rid of those ones plus those ones.
Very
food for thought.
Yeah, very efficient there. And I think when people see that, they usually say, oh, how do I do that? So hopefully someone watching will pick that up and run with it when they've got to be doing bulk coding.
And if it's just one thing, $4,500 smart agency, that sounds like it'll be an accounting firm. So you can just individually code things like that. Customers have made deposits. If there's a document, so in other words, you've got an invoice in your system. So in other words, an accounts payable invoice or an accounts receivable invoice, you need to do it the manual way to match the payment up to the invoice rather than cache coding it. So this is where you don't need to be applying your bank transactions to something in accounts receivable or accounts payable.
Yeah, like the name suggests, it's purely cash coding, right? So you're coding expenses that are just straight cash.
That's the one.
Your coffees and maybe your beer down there in the viaduct or whatever that you've got to do the last 6 months of them, but not invoices that you've actually got a document for. Well, that is beautiful, mate. What about anything from your end that comes to mind?
What else? Reports, that's always something that I think most people when they're in Xero would do their reconciling that we've just done and then have a look at your GST return. A couple of hacks for the GST return. Oh, look, these guys haven't even set up their GST. Let's go February, March. Tax form, GST, save. Is this going to work? Yes. There we go. So we're overdue. We won't worry about that too much, but we will click on that. You can electronically e-file your GST returns to Xero now, to IRD. Save it as a final, and it'll have a button there to go file now with IRD, and you just sign in with your My IR details, and boom, it's gone, easy as. Before filing it, always recommend having a look at your GST audit report. To make this easy, click on your headings here, and it'll group similar account names. So you can go through and scroll and go, okay, motor vehicle expenses, there's 2 of those. That's a monthly thing, that's fine. PC complete, so there's some stuff there that looks all fine. I've got some income, that looks all good. And then no GST stuff, bank fees, that looks all okay. Payments, small business services, well, that seems strange that that's got no GST. So I'd be clicking on that and finding out why that's got no GST. That's a little hack there. The other thing that I like to do is I don't like tax surprises. I'm not a fan, and GST is certainly not exempt from that. So to keep tabs on what your GST position is, preview period so far. So based on the transactions that you've already reconciled in Xero, this will be a snapshot of how much GST you owe or are due back from the IRD at partway through the period. So it gives you a warning immediately that there's 28 unreconciled items that won't be included in this. So you need to do those first for this then to be updated. But based on the information that's currently processed in Xero, we're due a refund. So I don't need to worry about setting any cash that we've got in our bank account aside to cover a GST payment. But if that was $1,000 that we had to pay to the IRD, I'd be making sure that I've got $1,000 sitting in an account to make sure that I can pay that on time. Then I know whatever's left in my main bank account after paying my bills is my money.
Very wise. And a lot of our clients use a separate bank account, don't they, to transfer their GST into to keep it separate, which is very smart.
Most do. Horses for courses. Everyone's got different working capital cycles, but that's if you don't like surprises and you always kind of, when you're paying that GST on the 28th every 2 months and you're going, oh, gee, if you're putting it into a separate account, it's the pill becomes a little bit easier to swallow.
Yeah. Nice. And of course, Xero's got a mobile app as well, which people can download. It's probably mostly used for reconciling, right? On the bus.
Yeah. Or waking up in the morning on the weekend and going, oh, gee, I've got, the whole week's worth of transactions to reconcile. So you just do those on a lazy Sunday morning.
Yeah.
The other one, reports, I think potentially this might be underutilized, is, actually looking at your P&L. Make sure you use the new formats of the reports. Xero do have a couple of different reporting engines, they like to call it. And it's just the way that the report generates. But this one is certainly much easier. Simplistically up here, you can change what you've got, what you're looking at, the date range, and then a little bit more detail. You can compare it with periods, accrual, or cash. If it's cash basis, that means it's just everything that's gone through the bank account. Accrual means it's everything in the bank account plus the invoices that remain unpaid from customers and unpaid to suppliers. If you want to get super fancy, we can change this a little bit, compare it with, say, 6 periods. There's a bit of data in there, and we can look at this down here and go, that looks all okay, but we go, oh, gee, freight and courier, that's actually something I want to treat as cost of goods sold. So what a little hack that you can do is edit the layout and come down to your freight and courier, click that, move it up to there, and then click done.
Masterclass with Phil.
The other way of doing that would be going to your chart of accounts as another way and finding, was it freight that we changed? There it is there. It's got it as an overhead, so we'd need to reclassify that in here as cost of goods sold, wherever it is, direct costs, using that as a guide there and saving that. And then there's another thing that you need to change as well for your report settings. It's starting to get a little bit fiddly because you'd need to come down here to your report codes. This is starting to get a little bit nerdy, and in here you've got freight somewhere. This is so you don't have to change it all the time. Freight's in here somewhere, and you need to change. Oh, it's already pulling through as a direct cost now because we changed it back. Come back to this report. There it is sitting there, and then save it. And you can save it as a custom report, and you can custom there, and you can change the name, cost of goods sold. You can make it the default report. So every time I print it, that's going to be the one that comes up with freight and courier up there.
Magic. And people should be reading this because that's telling them how their business is performing financially. So next week, perhaps we'll do a live on how to interpret some of those reports that seem so scary when looking at them, and we'll make them nice and simple and train people to get in the habit of actually using them.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the punters?
There's not a great comment from Shane suggesting that someone needs to follow us because we're great. So I won't tell you what I paid to have that comment come on, but it was good that they got the email in time that they came and added that. But no questions. No questions, but a few intent viewers. So hopefully people have learned something. I may be about to get another notification over this way. Yeah, any other hacks that you can think of, mate, before we wrap this up?
Nothing that springs to mind. There's different features in Xero, expense claims. So if you have employees, this is not a feature that is or that I see that's used terribly often. But if you've got employees that are out spending their own money and want to be reimbursed, this is the section that you do it. So you can give them access to expense claims. They would again download the Xero app on their phone, and it will have the expense claim thing in it. They will be able to lodge an expense claim via their phone, take a photo of the receipt or the invoice. It gets uploaded straight to Xero. It'll go to their manager or supervisor or whatever the approver is, for them to review, approve it, and then it'll go through the payroll process or your accounts payable process to then be reimbursed back to them. So that's a handy little wee feature if you have employees who are spending their own personal money on behalf of your company. The other thing, Xero does have its own payroll feature. I don't know if this one's been set up, but it works reasonably well as a basic payroll software. It does the job, but you do need to be on the Xero standard edition and above, I think, to be able to have this. If you're on a Xero cash book or a GST cash book, you would need to probably upgrade
to access it.
Yeah.
All right, mate. We'll stop sharing your screen there and give the people a final chance for any questions, but it doesn't look like there's anything there. But if anyone does have any questions, then let us know and we can address those at a later date. We'll come back to you with an answer, but hopefully that's given some people some things to think about. Some nice little tips there. And I think the thing that people need to understand as well is that Xero is constantly being updated, right, and upgraded almost. So it's based on user feedback as well. So it's constantly been improved. So often if you go and ask an accountant how to do something, it might have changed since the last time they did it. So that Xero help function really is a great place to find the most up-to-date information.
Yeah, it's an absolute godsend. Yep.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, sir. That has been magic, as always.
No worries. It's always fun to all jump in front of the camera and just talk, really. Provide some value.
Therapeutic. All right. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your evening to those watching, and those watching this recorded. Sing out if you've got any questions.